Set up our homemade slip and slide.
This is high school. Nothing that happens here matters in the real world.
This movie will be sure to trigger the easily triggerable, but will it add something new to the conversation? Let's find out. What it is, what it do, you guys? It's your boy Captain Former, and we're back in the building to break down Run, Hide, Fight, an action thriller produced by the Daily Wire. And yes, I still do movie reviews on this channel. So, you guys know the Daily Wire, right? It's a conservative news website and a YouTube channel spearheaded by commentator Ben Shapiro.
They are now ponies. Understand the reality of the pony space. Respect the pony space.
Anywho, Run, Hide, Fight stars Isabel May, Thomas Jane, and Radha Mitchell. The story centers on a 17-year-old teen girl named Zoe who ends up using her wits and survival skills to fight for her life and those of her schoolmates against a group of live streaming terrorists who invaded high school and start killing people. A full-length movie on a school active shooter situation. This won't be triggering to anyone, like at all. People, go ahead and tap on that like and subscribe button if you are new here. We break down, review, and react to all kinds of fun stuff here. And I'm sorry, but the premise and just execution of this whole film was a bit too intriguing for me to ignore. So, as I previously outlined, the plot of the film is fairly cut and dry, and we're taken through this traumatic incident from start to finish with the stunningly brave and skilled 17-year-old high schooler Zoe. At the beginning of the film, we find out she's suffering from the loss of her mother and has been shutting out her friends and family to cope with the trauma. Her father describes it as her being at war.
You mean?
No, I mean us. Hey, that look in your eye. Guys in my unit had that look.
Being a veteran himself, he's imparted her with hunting and marksmanship skills that I feel like didn't only serve to bring them closer, but help keep her mind mentally occupied. As you can imagine, these skills come in more than handy when chaos ensues within the halls of her high school. Per the title of the movie, Zoe grapples with her fight or flight instincts throughout different parts of the film. She uses an imaginary projection of her mother to influence her decisions, and ultimately comes to the heroic conclusion to help save as many of her schoolmates as she can using her invaluable survival skills. Now, I must give absolute props to the Daily Wire in crafting a convincing and personable female protagonist in this film, and give even more props to the actress Isabel May, who portrayed the character immaculately. What I enjoyed most about her role is that there really wasn't any focus on the fact that she was a female protagonist, you know. No cringy girl power scenes where she did it better than the boys. She was simply an incredibly brave and determined protagonist that held onto an unwavering goal of surviving and saving her schoolmates. And it's a relief that the protagonist was so well polished, because after the initial shock of the school infiltration, you come to realize that there really wasn't much after that. Like, another plus of this film is that it did try to stay as realistic to an actual school shooter scenario as possible. The kids or terrorists in question had no clear-cut goal or clear motivation outside of being angry and warped adolescents. So the tension kind of dissipated for me after a while, because you knew they were just biting for time and, I guess, social media views. That doesn't take away from how impactful the actual killings in this film were. Like, I don't care how often you see it in films or media, but there's no way to get used to seeing kids being shot and killed at point blank range. And don't get me wrong, it's in no way sensationalized, which was important. Like I said, the film does very well in depicting a realistic scenario, while at the same time giving no bias or intentful message about gun violence or response to the issue. Despite them being a right-wing media company. Along with stating that they plan on releasing a lot more films, they explain that the projects they make will not be your typical conservative documentaries about George Washington's mother's cousin's daughter. We want to tell stories that the left has stopped telling, just as we bring you news that the left won't cover. Filmmaker Dallas Sawyer added that they spent years carefully developing this movie by consulting with law enforcement veterans and shooting victims to immerse people into a realistic portrayal of what it's like to experience one of these tragedies. I feel like they absolutely accomplished this goal, and while I personally wish they did try to push the needle with a lesson or a message of some sort, I can understand their decision to keep interpretation open to the audience. I still feel like the film will get negative pushback either way, just based on the premise and nature of the violence, and hell, just because it was produced by a right-wing news network. So in my opinion, they should have just added something to the conversation of school gun violence, because I mean, without it, is just an action thriller based on the subject. Run, Hide, Fight is a decently constructed action thriller that definitely sits outside of the norm in the genre. There are a few inconsistencies in the movie that may or may not bother some viewers, like the sound of the gunshots didn't alert anyone outside of the cafeteria initially, and once the school administration did find out, and by find out I mean the main gunman had to literally call the front desk and tell them he was doing it, they didn't immediately put the school in lockdown, which was just bizarre to me. Anyway, if you can get past moments like that and aren't easily triggered, I can see this being a decent weekend night watch. Have you guys seen Run, Hide, Fight? Leave me your thoughts on it in the comments below. Don't forget to leave a like on this video, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll catch you in my next one. Peace!